It was 11:42 p.m. on a Tuesday when my phone buzzed on the end table beside me. I was already in my robe, a cup of peppermint tea cooling in my hands as the last pages of my mystery novel fluttered beneath my thumb. The text came from Tyler, my grandson, the one bright spot in a family that had grown more like shadows than shelter over the years. Tyler. Grandma, I'm sorry, but you need to see this. That was it. No explanation. No warning. Just those words and a video file below. Them. My stomach dropped. Tyler didn't send messages like this. He wasn't one for dramatics. I stared at the screen for a moment, the still frame of a paused video frozen mid-motion. My finger hovered, hesitant. But then I tapped, and everything changed. The image flickered to life. A cozy, elegant kitchen I recognized immediately. Vivian's kitchen. My daughter's prized showplace in Scottsdale. All quartz countertops and imported backsplash tiles. Vivian sat at the island, her perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around a wine glass, her blonde hair tucked behind one ear in that effortless way she always managed. She was laughing. Not the warm, real kind that reaches the eyes, but that sharp, dismissive laugh she picked up sometime after marrying Craig. Mom's become such a worthless burden, she said, almost casually, like discussing a sale at Nordstrom. I blinked. Surely I hadn't heard that right. Craig's voice chimed in off camera, smug and amused. He leaned into frame, his hand reaching for a bowl of olives, the smirk I'd come to associate with him widening. After everything we do for her, she barely helps with anything, he said. She owes us. All those doctor's appointments, listening to her ramble, grocery runs. It's exhausting. I sat frozen. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, but my hands stayed calm, unnaturally still. I should have been trembling. Instead, I pressed replay. Melissa, my granddaughter, was there too, nodding silently in the corner, phone in hand, scrolling with disinterest while her parents dissected me like I wasn't real. She acts like, "Those little grocery favors are some huge deal," Vivian continued, her voice syrupy with contempt. "I mean, come on, we're drowning in bills and she just exists." Craig scoffed. "The least she could do is sell that stupid beach condo. It's just sitting there. She never even uses it." My tea had gone cold, but I didn't move. The room around me fell away. I was no longer in my quiet house in East Tempe. I was in that video, invisible in the corner, hearing my only child call me a parasite in the home I was helping her keep. 5 years. That's how long it had been since Vivian showed up on my doorstep, mascara running and hands shaking, pleading with me to help them. Foreclosure was looming. The bank wouldn't budge. Craig's investment genius had turned sour. They were 3 months behind on the mortgage and ready to lose the Spanish colonial they'd bought beyond their means. I remembered the tea I made her that night. How I rubbed circles on her back as she cried. How I called Zara, my financial advisor, the next morning. Zara had suggested a discreet solution. Sunrise Solutions, LLC, a shell company that would buy out the mortgage from the credit union. Vivian. And Craig would keep paying what they could, $1,250 a month, and I would quietly cover the remaining $3,000. No embarrassment. No lectures. No shame. They never knew. For 5 years, they believed they were making payments to some faceless institution while I transferred over $3,000 every month from my retirement account to theirs. Quietly, lovingly, $183,750. That's what it's totaled to so far. And not once had they thanked me. Instead, I was a burden. I played the video again, Craig laughing, Melissa smirking, Vivian swirling her wine. Something inside me hardened, not with rage, not even grief, just clarity. That soft, maternal part of me, what remained after Robert's death, burned away under the weight of their cruelty. What was left behind wasn't sadness. It was resolve. My phone buzzed again. Tyler. Are you okay, Grandma? I stared at those words, longer than I meant to. Was I okay? I'd spent years telling myself that family came first. That sacrifice was love. That being needed was enough. But now? Now I understood what I really was to them. A bank with legs. A convenient liability. A placeholder they tolerated between check deposits. Me. I'm okay, sweetheart. Thank you for showing me the truth. Don't worry. I won't tell them it came from you. I glanced toward my laptop on the dining table. The next mortgage payment, due in 14 days, already sat queued in my Sunrise Solutions account. I hadn't hit transfer yet, and for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't sure I would. I walked over, slowly, and opened the file. There it was, the purchase option clause Zara had insisted we include. In the event of payment default, ownership shall transfer to Sunrise Solutions LLC under Arizona State Title Code 33807. 14 days. They had 14 days to learn the truth. They think I'm just the quiet old woman who smiles and nods, who shows up to family dinners with store-bought pies and polite conversation. They have no idea that the worthless burden is, actually, their landlord. I closed the laptop and took a deep breath. The tea was cold, but I drank it anyway. The taste was bitter, but not nearly as bitter as betrayal. People assume silence means approval, that if you don't object, you agree. But sometimes silence is just strategy, a way to protect dignity, yours and theirs. That's what I told myself the night Vivian showed up on my doorstep 5 years ago. I still remember it vividly. Rain was rare in Tempe that season, but that night, it poured. I'd just finished folding towels when the doorbell rang. Vivian stood there, soaked to the bone, makeup streaked down her cheeks, eyes swollen with panic. She didn't even say hello, just collapsed into my arms. "Mom," she whispered, "we're losing the house." It took nearly 30 minutes, a dry towel, and a mug of chamomile before I could make sense of her words. The mortgage was 3 months behind. The bank wasn't budging. Craig's investments had tanked, again. Her interior design business wasn't bringing in enough to cover even their utilities. Foreclosure was imminent. "We've tried everything," she sobbed. "The credit union won't negotiate. Craig's begging his father for a loan, but..." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. I remember sitting there on the couch, her head on my shoulder, staring into the dark window. She looked so small in that moment, so defeated. My daughter. The same girl who used to pretend her blanket was a superhero cape. Of course, I told her I'd help. But I didn't know how. Not yet. The next morning, I called Zara. Zara Raman had been my financial advisor for nearly 15 years. Smart, steady, and practical to the bone. She never promised miracles, just stability. She wore her professionalism. Like armor, her slate gray hijab always perfectly arranged, her tone clipped but kind. She showed up at my kitchen table by 8 a.m. the next morning, stacks of paperwork already in hand. "I reviewed their mortgage," she said, tapping a highlighted section. "They're underwater, nearly $100,000 behind. You could write a check to cover it, but you'd burn through your reserves. And frankly, it won't teach them anything." I winced. Not because she was wrong, because she was right. "Then what do I do?" I asked. She studied me over her glasses. "We set up an LLC. You buy the mortgage from their lender, quietly. They'll believe they're refinancing with a credit union. They'll continue making payments. You'll supplement them, preserve their dignity, and retain full legal protection." I blinked. "Won't that feel dishonest?" Zara shook her head. "It's not about deception. It's about boundaries. You're helping them without becoming their bank account, And if they default again, you own the property outright. That night, I signed the papers for Sunrise Solutions LLC. Within 2 weeks, the mortgage was refinanced under the new terms, the foreclosure proceedings stopped, and Vivian's tears dried up faster than a summer puddle. "I don't know how you convinced the bank to do this," she said, hugging me tight. "Craig tried everything." I just smiled and said, "Sometimes it helps to have someone who understands paperwork." For 6 months, Vivian was grateful. Genuinely so. She called more, brought me flowers for no reason, invited me to brunch. For a little while, I believed we were rebuilding something. But then things went back to normal. The vacations resumed. Cancun, Paris, Aspen. The designer handbags multiplied. They remodeled the kitchen. Again. Craig bought a new SUV. And slowly, the calls stopped. They were making their $250 payments on time. I was quietly adding the $3,000, and nobody ever asked where the other $3,000 was coming from. They assumed it was magic, or maybe that the bank had been extraordinarily generous. Either way, they didn't ask, and I didn't tell. Not out of shame. Never shame. I kept the secret because I thought it preserved their pride. I thought it allowed them to stand upright, even as they leaned heavily on me. But pride, I've learned, is a double-edged sword. About 2 years into the arrangement, Tyler found out. It was at Melissa's graduation party. I'd stepped outside to take a call from Zara about quarterly filings for Sunrise Solutions. When I turned around, Tyler stood behind me. "You own Mom and Dad's house?" he asked quietly. I should have lied. Should have said something vague and redirected the conversation. But I looked into those honest brown eyes, the ones that reminded me so much of Robert. And I couldn't. "Not exactly," I said. "But, yes, I helped keep it from being taken." We sat by the pool while laughter echoed from inside, and I told him everything. How they'd almost lost the house. How I bought the mortgage. How I'd been quietly helping for years. "Why?" he asked, shaking his head. "They don't treat you like you matter." "Because they're family," I said. He didn't argue. But he didn't look convinced either. From then on, Tyler knew, and he kept the secret. But over the years, I noticed it. The shift. The change in how Craig spoke about me. Subtle digs at my old-fashioned thinking. Vivian brushing off my advice, interrupting my stories. Melissa giving me that tight-lipped smile that didn't quite reach. Her eyes. They acted like I was lucky to be tolerated. They forgot, completely, that I was the reason they had a home to gather in, and I, fool that I was, let it happen. Until the video. That damn video. It shattered the illusion I'd carefully protected. It ripped away the story I'd told myself, that my sacrifice was appreciated, that love lived in unspoken gratitude, and it replaced it with truth. They didn't see me as a helper. They saw me as a burden. I'd just poured myself another cup of tea when my phone buzzed again. A new message. This one from Vivian. Vivian. "Mom, would you like to come to dinner Sunday? We have something important to discuss." I stared at the screen. I didn't need Tyler to tell me what this was about. They'd seen the money drying up. The new remodel probably needed funds. Maybe the business needed bailing out again. Important. To discuss. They meant, "We need more from you." They had no idea I'd seen the truth. I replied, "Of course, dear. Looking forward to it." I pressed send with a smile. The heart emoji felt poetic. Let them think I'm still soft. They'll learn soon enough. North Scottsdale has always had a certain smug charm. Pristine sidewalks, palm trees spaced with mathematical precision, Spanish-style roofs gleaming under the desert sun. The kind of place where everything looks perfect, until you knock on the wrong door. I pulled up to Vivian and Craig's house in my sensible beige Camry. parking beside Craig's gleaming black SUV. The 2-story Spanish colonial stood proud and polished, every inch of it bought with overconfidence and borrowed money. Money they thought came from a credit union. Money that, in truth, had been flowing quietly from my Sunrise Solutions account. I sat there for a moment with the engine humming, watching the late afternoon sunlight glint off their new front gate. I thought about driving away, thought about claiming I felt sick or had forgotten the invitation. But no, this moment, this performance, I had to witness. I shut off the engine, straightened my blouse, and grabbed the lemon pie I'd baked that morning. Let them see the same old mom they thought they knew. I rang the bell and waited. Vivian answered, all teeth and perfume. "Mom, you look wonderful." She kissed my cheek like it meant something. I smiled back. "Just the usual slacks and blouse," I said. "You're the one glowing, dear." She led me in with a practiced flourish, her hand resting lightly on my back like a tour guide ushering in a VIP. The foyer was freshly painted. New abstract art replaced the seascapes that once hung on the walls. A chandelier I didn't recognize sparkled above my head. "Something smells lovely," I said. "Craig's making his famous paella," she beamed. "And wait until you see the kitchen." She guided me into a gleaming white and gold culinary cathedral. Quartz countertops, a 6-burner Viking stove, brushed brass fixtures, easily a $50,000 renovation, done, no doubt, while pleading poverty in the same breath. Craig turned, apron on, holding a wooden spoon like he was starring in a cooking show. "Nora, just in time." "Smells delicious," I said, taking a seat at the breakfast bar. "New counters?" He grinned. "Oh, you noticed. Vivian's idea. Kitchens sell homes, you know." "Ah, so that was the angle. Preparing the house for sale, or maybe using it to justify needing help with the beach condo. Either way, it reeked of strategy." Melissa appeared next, her phone already in hand. "Grandma, you look amazing. Have you lost weight?" I nearly laughed. The same weight I've maintained since Robert passed, the same routine, the same clothes. But flattery was phase 1 of the operation, and they were sticking to the script. "Still 142, I said, patting my stomach, like clockwork. We moved into the dining room. They'd set it up like a Thanksgiving ad. Wine glasses sparkling, candles flickering, fresh-cut flowers in a tall glass vase. Melissa poured the wine with a flourish, and I accepted a half glass to keep things smooth. Dinner unfolded like theater. Small talk, over-enthusiastic compliments, Craig retelling his joke about the Phoenix airport and TSA. Then, right on cue, Melissa opened the nostalgia floodgate. "Remember that summer at the beach house, Grandma? When I was 12? Grandpa taught me to fish off the dock. You made those lemon cookies?" I nodded. "He spent hours showing you how to cast without hooking your brother's ear." She laughed. "I've been thinking it would be amazing to document that place before the memories fade. I could go next month, take some photos, record a few interviews with you, make a book. The real message: let me in. Let me assess the valuables. Let me begin the slow transition of ownership." "How thoughtful," I replied. "Though I'm quite attached to that place. It's Robert's legacy." Vivian jumped in then, placing a manicured hand on mine. "Mom, we've actually been meaning to talk to you about that. About the condo. And everything, really." Her voice was gentle, concerned, a performance she'd perfected. "We're just worried about how much you're managing on your own." Craig leaned in. "It's a lot. Property taxes, hurricane insurance, that long drive to Mexico. Maybe it's time to simplify things." I sipped my wine. "Simplify?" "Sell the condo," Vivian said gently. "Invest the equity with Connor's help, of course." There it was, the reveal. Connor Reynolds, their financial guru, a slick-talking opportunist with a history of pushing elderly clients into consolidated portfolios he could quietly control. "We just want what's best for you," Craig added. "You've supported us for so long. Maybe it's time we return the favor by helping you manage things." "You think I need help?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "Mom," Vivian said with a sigh, "there have been signs. Forgetting things. Being overly cautious. Refusing to let go of old assets. Connor says emotional attachment to property can cloud judgment. And he would know about judgment," I cut in, smiling sweetly. "He's such a charming man." Vivian flinched, just slightly. I excused myself then, claimed I needed the bathroom. But instead, I slipped quietly down the hall toward the home office. The door was ajar, voices leaking through. "He's already drawn up the initial paperwork," I heard Craig whisper. "If she resists, we escalate." Connor's voice followed. Calm. Calculated. Cognitive decline is tricky to prove, but with Melissa's help, we can document inconsistencies, start building a case for financial guardianship, frame it as protection. "I just don't want to wait too long," Vivian whispered. "The market's peaking. If she refuses to sell the condo, we'll lose our shot." "And if she panics?" Melissa's voice now, hesitant. "Then we say she's paranoid," Connor said flatly. "The courts eat that up." I stood there, still as stone, my pulse drumming behind my eyes. My own daughter, my granddaughter, planning to declare me incompetent, all while sipping wine and smiling in my face. I stepped back quietly, made sure my expression was composed, and returned to the table. "Everything all right?" Craig asked, slicing into the pie I'd brought. "Just fine," I said. "Lovely meal. Lovely company." They smiled, thinking their plan was working, thinking they were slowly wrapping me in a net I couldn't see. But what they didn't realize is that I had written this kind of performance 1,000 times. On school stages, in parent-teacher conferences, at board meetings. I'd seen manipulation, dressed as concern more times than I could count. And this time, I was done playing along. The pie was delicious. The wine pleasant. The lies masterfully delivered. But inside, my resolve had hardened into something immovable. They had no idea I was their landlord. They had no idea I'd already decided. The next payment was due in 9 days. And for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't sending a dime. The morning after dinner, my phone rang 6 times before breakfast. Vivian, Craig, Vivian again, Connor, even Melissa. I didn't answer any of them. I sat at the kitchen table in my robe, slicing strawberries, over oatmeal, the desert sun pushing its golden fingers through the blinds. I stirred in a spoonful of honey and listened to the silence between rings. They were nervous. Good. By noon, the text messages arrived, each laced with artificial warmth. "Mom, hope you slept well. Just checking in about our conversation. Nora, we'd love to help you start organizing the condo appraisal. No rush, of course, but let's not delay too long. Grandma, Connor says there's a small issue with the beach property's tax status. Wants to chat." I set my phone down beside my tea and stared out the window. The hummingbird feeder swayed in the breeze. The neighborhood cat napped under my bougainvillea. Life, as it often does, moved on quietly while a storm brewed just beneath the surface. They thought I was dithering, that I needed time to think, that their carefully crafted web was tightening. They had no idea I was already at war. I called Zara. "I need to meet with you and Maxwell," I said. She didn't ask questions, just said, "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., I'll bring everything." Maxwell, Green's office downtown, was lined with oak bookcases and framed degrees, the kind of room built to make people think twice about crossing whoever sat behind the desk. Maxwell had been Zara's legal partner for years, specializing in elder law, estate security, and unfortunately, cases of financial abuse. We shook hands firmly. He offered me coffee. I declined. I'll get straight to the point, I said, placing my leather folder on the table. My family is planning to declare me mentally unfit in order to access my assets. I need to make sure they fail. Zara slid the Sunrise Solutions LLC paperwork in front of him while I explained everything: the mortgage buyout, the partial payments, the clause allowing full ownership if they defaulted. Maxwell read in silence for several minutes before leaning back, impressed. "This is airtight," he said. "Your signatures, their acknowledgement, all notarized. Payments clearly tracked. There's nothing ambiguous here." "And if they contest it?" I asked. He smiled dryly. "They'll lose." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. "But about the guardianship threat," I said quietly. Zara looked at Maxwell, who nodded. "You'll need a cognitive evaluation," he said. "We document your mental clarity now before they can attempt anything. Clean paperwork, neutral doctor, legally binding evidence. And if they've already been building a case," he opened a new file, "then we counter with truth. You're organized, functioning, a business owner with an active LLC and a spotless financial record. You're not vulnerable, Mrs. Peterson. You're prepared." I left his office with 3 appointments, 5 signed documents, and a mind as clear as the Arizona sky. Over the next 5 days, I moved methodically. I sat for my evaluation with a geriatric psychologist recommended by the Bar Association. She asked about dates, politics, math problems, emotional reasoning. She asked me to list the past 4 presidents and subtract 7 from 100 by 7s. I finished early and corrected her on a Supreme Court nomination. She chuckled. "Mrs. Peterson, your mind is sharper than most people half your age," I smiled. "Let's make sure that's in writing." Meanwhile, Tyler met me at the diner across town, the same one where Robert and I used to get pie after Sunday church. He looked older than 22 now. Calmer. Grounded. A young man stepping into his own shadow. "They're desperate," he said, handing me his phone. "Dad's been on legal forums, searching for loopholes, looking up power of attorney, ways to seize assets without probate." He showed me screenshots. Craig had booked a consultation with an elder law attorney under Vivian's name. Melissa had started Googling Arizona guardianship forms. "They're documenting everything," he added. "Recording your phone calls, saving texts." "Let them," I said, calmly sipping my tea. I haven't lied to them once. Day 8, I met Zara at the credit union and closed all joint access accounts, moved my savings, updated passwords. She guided me through transferring my brokerage assets to new custodians. Everything tightened, locked, and made court-proof. "I've drafted the formal eviction paperwork," Maxwell said in our next meeting. "It's ready to file the moment the default triggers." "And the tax issue?" "Handled. There isn't one. Their narrative won't hold up under even minimal scrutiny." I nodded, feeling something settle inside me. Something I hadn't felt in years. Safety. Day 6. Melissa showed up at my door unannounced, hair pulled back, no makeup, a backpack slung over one shoulder, her "I'm sincere" uniform. "Grandma, can we talk?" I let her in, offered her water, sat across from her as she fidgeted on the edge of the couch. "Mom and Dad are worried," she said carefully. "They think maybe you're not seeing the big picture, about the condo, about your money, about the future." "And what do you think, Melissa?" I asked. She hesitated. "I think you're more capable than they give you credit for. But you didn't stop them from plotting to take control, did you?" She looked down. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't know how far it would go. I nodded. Most people don't until they're too far in. When she left, I didn't feel anger, just distance, like watching someone you once knew from behind thick glass. Day 3. I stood in line at the county records office, filed a document notarizing the full legal ownership transfer clause of Sunrise Solutions. The clerk didn't bat an eye, just stamped the paperwork and slid it back with a smile. There you go, Mrs. Peterson. All set. Day 2. Zara called. Everything's in place. The moment their $250 payment posts without your $3,000 supplement, it'll trigger the default notice. And the eviction timeline? 30 days. Formal notice will go out automatically. They won't be able to stop it. I hung up and watched the sun drop behind the cacti. A final orange burst over the mountains. Tomorrow was the deadline. Day 1. I woke at 5:03 a.m. The house was quiet, the air cool. I padded to the kitchen, barefoot, wrapped in my robe. I brewed my tea, peppermint again, and carried it to the sunroom. The sky outside was still indigo, the first rays of morning bleeding gold at the edges. The payment was due by midnight. I'd logged into the Sunrise Solutions portal the night before and toggled off my auto transfer. A single click had ended 5 years of silent support. I watched as a hummingbird hovered by the feeder, wings a blur of urgency. Then it darted away. The house was silent, peaceful, mine. Soon, they would discover the truth. Soon, they would feel the weight of their own entitlement. But for now, I sipped my tea and watched the sunrise warm the sky. The countdown was over. Consequence had arrived. The call came at 8:19 a.m., exactly 2 minutes after the system sent the default notice. "Mom!" Vivian's voice shrieked through the speaker, already brittle with panic. "Something's wrong. We just got a notice from the mortgage company, something about insufficient payment and default proceedings. What's going on?" I stirred a sugar cube into my tea, watching steam rise, like breath from the surface. "What does the notice say exactly?" I asked calmly. She fumbled for words. I imagined her standing barefoot in that over-renovated kitchen, hair messy from sleep, phone in one hand, printed notice in the other. It says, "Our payment of $1,250 is insufficient to meet the monthly obligation of $4,150. That we've failed to meet terms and that foreclosure may proceed if not resolved within 5 days." She was nearly crying. "That's strange," I said softly. "You've been making that same payment for years. Why would that suddenly be an issue?" "Exactly," she said, clutching the lifeline. "It doesn't make sense. We tried calling the mortgage company, but the number leads to some company. We've never heard of Sunrise Solutions? The recording said a representative will return our call within 24 hours. I took a long sip of my tea and smiled. "No need to wait, dear. I can help with that." "You can?" Hope flooded her voice. "Yes," I said, setting my cup down. "Because I am Sunrise Solutions." There was a pause so thick I could hear her swallow. "What?" "I own the company, Vivian. I bought your mortgage 5 years ago, quietly, through an LLC. You've been paying me, well, part of it. I've been covering the rest, every month, without fail." "No," she breathed. "No, that's not possible. Our mortgage is through First Arizona Credit Union." "It was," I corrected gently. "Until they sold it. I stepped in to protect your home when the bank wouldn't. And I've let you believe you were paying it off. When really, I was covering $3,000 of it every month." Silence. Then, "Why wouldn't you just tell us?" "Because Craig wouldn't have accepted the help, and you would have turned it into a transaction. This way, you kept your pride, and I kept my boundaries." Another long silence. "I need to talk to Craig," she said tightly. "We'll call you back." They arrived at my house 43 minutes later, unannounced. The SUV roared into my driveway like a beast mid-charge. They stormed to my door together. Craig's jaw clenched, Vivian's arms crossed. Melissa trailed behind, quiet as a shadow. I opened the door before they could knock. Everything was already in place. Folder on the table, documents stacked, tea freshly brewed. "Come in," I said. "I've been expecting you." Craig didn't wait for niceties. "What the hell is going on?" he barked. "You're saying you've been our mortgage holder this entire time?" I gestured to the living room. "Let's sit. I'll explain." They remained standing, their posture stiff with disbelief. Vivian's voice quivered. "This has to be some kind of mistake. You tricked us." I picked up the folder and handed it to her. "Not a trick, a transaction, fully legal, signed by both of you, notarized. Here's the purchase agreement, the payment logs, the clause allowing full property transfer in case of default." Craig flipped through the documents like they might explode in his hands. "This is extortion," he hissed. "You manipulated us." "No," I said, my voice level. "I saved you. I gave you a way to keep your home without shame, and in return you gave me contempt." Vivian dropped onto the couch, her face pale. "Why, Mom? Why do this now?" I looked at her for a long moment, and then I told her. "Because Tyler sent me a video." Her eyes widened. "What video?" "The one where you sat in your kitchen, calling me a worthless burden. The one where Craig said I owed you. The one where Melissa said nothing at all. I watched it 3 times. I heard every word." Craig went still. Vivian's lips parted, then closed again. No denial, just guilt. "You're going to punish us for something we said in private?" Craig sneered. I stood slowly, picking up the formal envelope on my table. "This isn't punishment. It's consequence." I handed him the envelope. "This is a formal eviction notice, 30 days to vacate. Standard procedure for defaulting tenants." Vivian's eyes filled with tears. "You're evicting us?" "I'm enforcing the contract you signed. The one that gave you 5 years of stability. The one you violated the moment you stopped respecting the hand that fed you." Melissa finally spoke, her voice low. "Grandma, you don't have to do this." I turned to her. "You're right. I don't. But I am." She looked away, eyes glassy. Craig raised his voice. "You've lost your mind. This is about control, revenge." I looked him square in the eye. "This isn't revenge," I said. "This is what happens when respect runs out." He stared at me, breathing heavily. But he didn't respond. Vivian tried again, her voice trembling. "We can fix this. We'll pay more. We'll refinance." "No," I said simply. "But the kids are grown. Tyler has his own place. Melissa is an adult. This house, this fantasy, ends now." Just then, the doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. "Come in," I called. Maxwell Green stepped into the room, leather briefcase in hand. "Mrs. Peterson," he nodded. "Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell, I assume." Craig stared at him. "Who the hell is this?" "My attorney," I said. "Here to confirm that everything I've said today is legally binding and documented. He'll also be overseeing the eviction process." Maxwell placed 2 identical copies of the eviction paperwork on the table. "You each need to sign to confirm receipt, or I can have them delivered by the sheriff's office. Your choice." Vivian looked like she might cry again. "You're serious? You're really doing this?" I nodded. "And I'll follow through?" Craig swore under his breath and began pacing. Vivian looked up at me. "What about the beach condo?" "It's not yours to worry about." "What if we apologize?" she asked quietly. "Really apologize. Show you we mean it." "That would be a start," I said. "But it won't stop the consequences." They signed the papers with shaking hands. As they stood to leave, I stopped them. "I want you to know something," I said. "I did this because I believed in family. I helped you because I loved you. But love without respect is just servitude. And I'm no one's servant. Vivian looked at me for a long moment. This will tear the family apart. No, I replied. This will show the family what happens when you treat your elders like tools instead of people. They left without another word. I sat down in my quiet living room, the sun casting long shadows across the floor. I poured myself another cup of tea. It tasted stronger now. So did I. They left 2 days before the sheriff was scheduled to arrive. I'd expected bitterness. What I didn't expect was destruction. The hardwood floors had been gouged with a crowbar, cabinet doors ripped clean off their hinges. Someone had shattered the master bathroom mirror and spray-painted the bedroom wall in blocky red letters. Thief. In the living room, one word stood alone, crooked and cruel. Burden. I stood in the center of it all, the damage echoing around, me like a tantrum thrown by adults who'd finally been told no. Maxwell walked through the wreckage with his camera out, snapping pictures for the insurance claim. This level of damage, he said, adjusting his glasses, will likely pursue criminal charges, vandalism, property destruction, possibly even malicious intent. I just nodded. It didn't surprise me. Entitlement rarely leaves quietly. News spreads fast in a desert town, especially when the ones who always wore the brightest smiles are suddenly exposed as frauds. The photos of the damage made the rounds at the community center. The same community where Craig had spun his story about my confusion, my vulnerability. The same people he'd tried to recruit as character witnesses. Elaine, my neighbor and longtime quilting partner, called me the next morning. "Nora, honey," she said. "You should have seen the look on his face when I showed him the pictures of your destroyed floors. Tried to claim it was a mistake. Poor workmanship. I told him, mistakes don't come with spray paint." For once, I didn't laugh. I just felt tired. Not physically. Not even emotionally. Just tired of pretending I owed silence to people who had weaponized my love. Insurance covered most of the repairs. Zara helped me liquidate one of my smaller investment accounts to cover the rest. We hired contractors, stripped the paint, sanded the floors, replaced the fixtures. The house gleamed again in 6 weeks. But this time, I didn't stage it with designer furniture. This time, I filled it with purpose. The Sunrise Solutions. Family transition. Home opened quietly, without ribbon cutting or fanfare. 5 bedrooms, a large kitchen, warm lighting, new locks on every door. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a place where women like me, widows, retirees, elders discarded by their own families, could land softly when life fell apart. A short-term haven for women between hospital discharges and independent living. No rent, just safety. A step between abandonment and belonging. We named the bedrooms after educators who had shaped my career as a school principal. Ms. Carter, who taught me how to command a room. Mrs. Doyle, who insisted we always leave things better than we found them. The sunroom became a place for watercolor classes and morning coffee chats. The living room, once dripping in Vivian's curated perfection, now held a bookshelf stocked with novels and board games. The kitchen, the same kitchen Craig once bragged about, hosted nutrition classes every Tuesday. Robert would have loved it. Tyler visits every Sunday. Sometimes he brings groceries. Other times he just brings himself. Walks in like he belongs, and in many ways he does. He helps around the house, fixes broken cabinet hinges, even assembled one of the guest beds after the frame arrived missing a bolt. "I can't believe what you turned this place into," he said one evening, his voice soft as we watched the sun stretch across the floor tiles. "You helped," I reminded him. "You gave me the truth, and the truth gave me freedom." He smiled. "You were always strong. You just needed a reason to stop being quiet." He's thriving. That engineering internship he mentioned, it turned into a job offer. He's moving, into his first apartment next month, on his own dime. His parents still don't speak to him. He says he's okay with that. "I didn't lose parents," he said once. "I gained perspective." Melissa writes now and then. The first message came a week after the eviction. It was short. Just, "I'm sorry. I see it now. I wish I'd said something sooner." Since then, she sent postcards from her photography jobs. Seattle, Denver, Chicago. She hasn't asked for money, just space. Maybe one day we'll meet again. Maybe not. Vivian and Craig have gone silent. Rumor has it they're renting a condo in East Phoenix, far from the glossy world they once curated. Craig's SUV was repossessed. Vivian started selling her designer shoes on Facebook Marketplace. Pride, it turns out, has a price. I go to the beach condo more often now. Not to preserve it as a museum for Robert's memory, but to live in it, to breathe in the salt air and watch the sunset like we used to dream about. His fishing hat still hangs by the door. His coffee mug still sits in the cupboard. But now, I use it. I joined a watercolor class down there, made a few friends, took up paddleboarding at 76, awkward, hilarious, invigorating. For the first time in years, I've stopped measuring my days by who needs me. I measure them by what fills me. Zara asked me during our last review, "Do you ever regret how it ended?" I thought about it for a while. "I regret that it had to end the way it did," I said. "But I don't regret ending it." She nodded. "It's not revenge." "No," I agreed. "It's correction. It's balance. Because the truth is, the heaviest burden I carried wasn't the $183,850 I paid to keep their home. It wasn't the groceries, the appointments, the sacrifice. It was the belief that I owed love to people who had long stopped offering it in return. Now, the weight is gone. I have my tea, my ocean view, my sunrise over cactus, my Sundays with Tyler, my house full of second chances. I'm not a burden. I'm a builder. And I finally remembered how to build for myself. The heaviest burden wasn't the mortgage. It was believing I owed love to those who showed me none.